Hey, welcome to Unlearned Unlimited. My name is Dr. Sito Narcisse. Welcome to the show. This week we got a cool guest. Her name's Alexis McLaughlin, who is an educator out in Texas, Houston. We're going to talk to her a little bit about AI and all the cool things that happens around those spaces, and also some other things that she had learned how to navigate through the work. We're always super excited when we have innovators and educators really doing some cool things. Let's go. Drop the beat.
Unlearned Unlimited. What? Unlearned Unlimited.
Hello, welcome to Unlimited Unlearn. My name is Dr. Sito Narcisse. I'm your host, and this is going to be a banger. We're excited to have Alexis. This week, our show is going to be around what we call it is an AI secret weapon, and talking about all the cool things around AI, but also talking about variations of connections and how you do different set of things around leadership and that type of work. And we're super excited that Alexis could sit down and come and join us for the show. Alexis, I know you have been, well, first let me say welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Super glad you're here. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about a lot of stuff. We always kind of let Alexis people to come down and let them kind of tell us about themselves. Some of the big things I know about you, and let me say it because I took some notes. You know, we did, as I always say, we did a little bit of homework on you, right? We sat down and I said, hey, what are some really cool things that you can hear about Alexis? And so let me say it. Let me just read a couple of stuff. You tell me if it's true or not, because I know how it works. But we got to do some homework. 2010, you were the Teacher History of Practice Fellowship recipient. Is that right?
Yeah, so I went to University of Illinois and I received a fellowship to do theater history and practice. So I'm a theater girl.
So you got a little bit of acting in you, right? You can do
Directing and producing. I'm not in front of the screen. I'm behind it.
All right. Also, we found out that you are a founder of Smart Support Agency. Does a lot of work with minority students and stuff like that. So we can talk a little bit about that, right? Especially around, you do work around AI stuff as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then also CPTSD survivor and peer facilitator with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness for Greater Houston.
Yes.
Love to hear a little bit about that as well on the show. But what I learned is when we started to do a little bit of work and learn about you is that you have a wide range of experiences, right? And look like you start off from the classroom to where you are. So let's talk to the audience a little bit about, tell us about your journey. Like, what is the thing, Alexis, like what made her become who she is today? And just tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of your journey, your context.
Well, I really have been extremely lucky to be in the right place at the right time. So my teaching education journey started at the end of my undergraduate career, again, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign alum. And I just took a Black Women in Histories class because if you know senior year, you're just trying to get the credits to get out, right? At that point, it's get to the degree. So I just happened to be in the class. The professor really loved me. She was like, "Hey, I'll offer you a fellowship, but you have to come and teach theater of the Black experience." So I'm 22 at the time. I had to develop a whole college course, 16 weeks, and then get in front of my peers and actually.
You are 22 years old doing this.
Yes, 22.
That's wild.
Yep.
That's wild. But I know we're already where you are in college, but was this something you always wanted to do when you were in like high school, or is
No
like,
idea.
Like
I just did theater as like an extracurricular.
okay.
But like I said, right place, right time. She was really impressed with my work and my interest in the subject, and she handpicked me.
Did your family ever push you into theater? Like, was your mom an actress, or
No,
like
my mom is
what made
super
you?
shy.
Okay, well, what made you get the interest into this space?
Well, when I went to high school, I thought I was going to play sports, but didn't realize I sucked at sports. So I never made the teams. But my mom was one of those, she's a single parent, so you're going to stay busy. You're going to find you something to
Right.
do, right? Did that keep me out of trouble? No. But I was like, hey, it's musical. Let me go audition. Got into my first musical, stuck
Yep.
with it. Yeah.
And I guess we could say, Mom, you did a good job. I don't care what Alexis said. Look, you did a great job. She may complain a little bit, but it's interesting you talk about that. In one of the shows we had, we always talk about like our life experiences, how we called it pivoting, like to become where we are today. So it's always interesting for us to always hear like, not only like the topic we're talking about, but what people's journey is, right? There's a reason you are where you are today, right?
Yes.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, or whether it was a straight path or a zigzag, as we always say, there's a reason you did what you did, and then you got these experiences to be where you are. And so I always think it's really interesting as people hear professionals and folks talk about it, because sometimes the world, they always see the final product. They don't ever see the journey to where they're trying to get. So anyway, we're super really excited about that. Well, let's get into it, right? So, this topic we wanted to talk about was around AI's secret weapon, we call it. How the shocking truth about connecting kids, right? Everything we're trying to do is like, now is what are we doing to try to help kids get connected? And the reason we thought you were going to be such a great guest was like, we're like, hey, you got somebody that's been in the classroom, moved up, did all this stuff, and is now doing stuff that's actually helping people around the country to do different set of things in these spaces. And so I thought it'd be great to kind of hear from you a little bit about that and just your thoughts around that, right? So when you look at today, for example, AI has been really pushing into a lot of different spaces, really delayed in the education world, to be honest with you. But people are sometimes they're kind of scared or fearful about it, or they think it's going to take over a job. There's like all this stuff that's going on. From your perspective, like, what has been your thinking around it, and where have you seen like people's anxiety? I guess what would you say? Do you think people's anxiety should be high, or would you say, "Hey, folks, it's gonna be okay, and this is how you should adapt to it"? What's your thoughts around that?
Ready or not, it's here. So I'll lead in with a little story. I was at an event a couple weeks ago, and I was speaking with a college professor, and she was like, "These adults," she's at a community college. "These kids, they can't write, they can't do a basic paragraph," and she's teaching government.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, "They're not going to."
Mhm.
Just in my experience coming from elementary all up through high school and with adult learning, we have to get minority kids invested in learning AI, but that first becomes an adult learning shift.
Mhm.
Um, you have your older school teachers who the old school foundational ways work, but what I'm seeing is that that's truly, truly going to cause a long-term gap. It's going to widen our achievement gap, especially for Black students, mainly because everything is geared toward AI. You go into McDonald's, you have to do your mobile order. And when we're thinking about skills and trades, you're going to have to reimagine. Yes, you can be a plumber, welder, beautician, but that new trend when I'm watching the market, getting into how can I be the serviceman for these kiosks? How can I come in and use AI to prompt the machine to, because that's where we're headed in terms of society. But we
Are
have
you
nobody to teach our kids that yet.
are you around people that like in your everyday life, not the school life, but in your everyday life that are fearful of this stuff,
Yes
or
and
they
no.
embrace it? Okay, say
Th-
more.
That's more like, what is this?
Uh huh.
Um, and they just don't want to touch it, right? It's just too, they can't really wrap their mind around it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I do get a lot of people not knowing exactly how powerful the tool can be and how to really use it and leverage it to connect with children.
It's interesting you said that in our world a little bit, as you know, we're in the education space. Sometimes people don't share everything. They say one thing, but then behind closed doors, they do something else, right? So, and the reason I bring this up is because, there's one thing as you're doing as a teacher, but what I've seen in terms of the utilization, like now people are really hyped up on Chat GPT. Like I could tell now, like, when they like copy and paste to email somebody, because there's like a dash or something in there. And they're like, did you write this in Chat GPT do this? Well, I was trying, I'd be like, fuck, it's okay if Chat GPT did. That's what you did, right? Like so, but it's interesting like how it's adapting and changing people in terms of an everyday solution for what they're trying to get done, right? Which I think is an actual good thing, right? But I've also noticed it's like this fear of like, I don't want to tell people what my knowledge is, what I know, I don't know. But and everybody, I even hear people on that end, or I hear a whole other extreme. Like I talk to some people, like, I'm a master of this, and I know this, and I'm like, please, I mean, it's the world we live in, right? It's like, what kind of perception can I show, right? Do you experience some of that when you go out and work with different folks, seeing like where they are and what their wide range is?
Yeah, so I'll share a little bit about my experience with people using Chat GPT.
Uh-huh.
So like I said, it's great for efficiency, but just when you're jumping on, hey, I want to write this paper, it reads as an AI voice. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people don't know, if you prompted, hey, use my authentic tone, use my vernacular, adopt my personality, I want to be warm, I want to be engaging, it will spit out like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For students, a lot of students, they're going to find a way to cheat the system. So they have these automators, but you can prompt it to not be detectable by the automators. So just me knowing that from my experience, that's something that we need to start really having conversations about because, like I said, it's so powerful. A lot of adults struggle with writing. So we're talking about resumes in a tight job market, right? So you can say, hey, make me a resume for this, but you don't go reread it and see where it says employer name or, it's not tailored to exactly your content and what you need it to be. So there are so many resources out there, free resources, that if I could just connect those resources to those people, especially our people,
Mm-hmm.
um, it would change the game for a lot of things in our culture.
When you think about everyday solutions in schools, right? Like, I always hear people trying to, everybody does AI now. I think any tool that anybody brings you is somehow AI powered, right? In school systems now, it seems. What is your thoughts in terms of how you see that the people on the ground receiving it, right? Whether it's, they're using a tool for math or English or whatever it is, are they received, like, what do you see usually? Do you see stage of it, like, are they a lot of anxiety, or like what's the sense of concerns you see they have?
It's very, very slow here in Texas, the rollout. We're still very traditional because we're focused on testing, right? There's no
Okay.
it's no AI in achievement.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do see a lot of is teachers getting frustrated by it, especially in the high school level, because students have the capacity to use it for their research papers, et cetera, but that doesn't translate to traditional academic content teaching and learning.
Mm-hmm.
So as we move into integrating AI into core content subjects and using it to produce projects, it's going to need to be a lot of professional development on a lot of different aspects because while AI can be very great and we cannot avoid it, it can also be very dangerous really quickly. And I think that outside of just, hey, I'm going to teach in and give you this PD on how to turn it on and make it work, we need to have some ethical conversations. We need to have some personal conversations about the pros and cons and how to navigate through those pitfalls that will pop up.
Do you see, Alexis, that AI is going to eliminate human connection? And the reason I bring this up is because now you see, if you go work at a company or you do those things, they want you to problem solve as a team, figure this out, blah, blah, blah. It kind of, and so my question is always around, like, the more you are sitting and engaging with technology, the less sometimes, if you're not designing what you need to know, you're engaging with humans, right? Do
Yep.
you find that as a fear for people in schools?
It needs to be a fear for everybody. Yes, we're in an age where you can isolate and you think connection is hopping on a Zoom meeting or engaging in a comment section on social media. We're getting away from the art of energy, right? Interpersonal, nonverbal communication. How do you articulate using body language? You don't have to do that
Well,
with
I think people. I don't know about you, but I think people have been using less body language for a long time,
because we
and
have more
technology has
access.
gotten better, right? I mean, like,
Yep.
now people don't even say hi no more. I mean, I would argue things like the Instagrams and those things are where actually have helped kids more to connect.
See, I disagree. I would disagree because like they say, Twitter fingers.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to say to you what I would say to your face and engage in conflict that way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to create a burner account. I think that's what they call it. And then I'm going to tear you up in the comments. Right.
Okay.
So when we think about
Well,
cyberbullying, yeah.
but what if somebody? But look, no, if you notice now, when kids want to date or do whatever, they don't ask for phone numbers. They ask for what's your Instagram number, right?
Yep.
So would you say there's more connections now from an interpersonal space?
No, because internet, and we can think about dating. How many people present their best self and not their authentic self in those spaces, right? You think
Right,
about the
right, right,
filters. You
right,
think
right.
about, I can use words. Words don't communicate the same. Written words don't communicate the same as verbal communication and language.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, kids don't know how to date. Heck, adults are struggling with dating. If you think about it, because when you may get to the date and then the person is 20 pounds heavier than the picture, or you don't have the chemistry because you can't feel that. So when we think about AI now,
Mm-hmm.
the dangerous thing is, when I was coming up, Google was hot. So you can ask Google a question, it's going to tell you the answer. Okay,
Right,
that's
right,
top tier.
right.
But now people are starting to use AI as a therapist, right? They're
I
starting
know.
to use it
Is
to
that
provide life
scary?
guidance.
Right.
And that's a dangerous thing, because
Yeah.
the algorithm is tailored to what you want, like your
Mm.
Facebook ads popping up based on what you're searching. Same thing with AI, and we don't know that.
So let me tell you what I got up from what you said. Number one, AI can make you a better looking person if you ugly. Number two, it can lead with perception, right?
For
But
sure.
but I mean, all jokes aside on that, but the big thing I think I heard is that the algorithm tailors to how you feed it, right? I guess what's it? Your input in is input out. Is that correct?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So that's interesting, right? I'm just thinking about it from like, if you're actually teaching a kid or you're working with it in a school system or something like that, you'd have to really think through. And so you still have to have some type of way you're designing something, right? In order for you to actually get to the actual result that it actually needs to be.
Yeah.
Would you agree on that?
Yeah, you have to definitely, and this is just best practices. You begin with the end in mind.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so of course, we want kids to productively struggle, but we also need to make it relevant to what they're going to experience when they get out into society, meaning that when you engage them with AI, what is the product? What is going to keep them engaged? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just give them a passage anymore, answer these questions using AI open ended. No, they have to have a personal investment to be intrinsically motivated to use this tool to help them just be more globally competitive, because China's been doing it, you know, and I'm seeing that when it comes to educators, and myself included, I want to not let go of old practices, old methodology. But kids teach you every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
how can we help kids to not stifle them to play to their strengths and what their world is like, not what our world is like, but still get those foundational core content, skills, and knowledge out of them? Like, make sure that they're prepared to do that.
So it sounds like if you are in a scared place, right? Or you don't like to change and adapt, you're going to have a hard time with what goes on now.
For
Would you
sure,
agree?
110%.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say that because it's funny, right? So you see, you're out in Texas right now. You're in what, like the Houston area, is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So like, I've seen schools, whether they were in. I remember going to talk to some superintendent folks out in the Texas area, folks out in DC, Atlanta, like different parts of the country. And I watched the variation of how they engage around AI, right? You either have people who are self-proclaimed, they got it all together, or you got other folks, who didn't even want to start it because they were so concerned about all these things. And
yeah.
what and and every time we would have that conversation, we were like, listen, they're way ahead, there's so much more, da 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 da. What you ended up finding out was like it was just a natural fear of order that was going on with them in
We
terms
don't
of
like
time.
change.
That's
Change is
correct, right?
scary. Change
Which
is
is which
uncomfortable.
is which is 100% the problem in our education space anyway, right? we are always last. But what's crazy about it, we're supposed to be the folks that help kids to be ahead of everything so they can do better, right? And I think that's why sometimes the educational systems, people have a lot of sets of challenges around it, is because the adaptability. Let's dive in a little bit more. So tell me a little bit about like when you think about AI or things that happen in school, if you had to name and say, what are the 3 biggest massive problems you see right now with getting teachers to adapt to this, and also getting schools to make it a part of their everyday educational solution, what would you say is the big 3 problems right now you've seen being on the ground?
Standardized testing,
Mm,
teacher
say more.
evaluations connected to standardized testing. So a term we used to always use is teach to the test, because
Mhm,
we've moved away from it really being about educating the whole child
mhm,
to we need funding. So unless our scores are at this percentage, unless our rating is at this rating, we're not producing, we're not successful. And so then a lot of the pressure becomes, how can I get these numbers up? Each kid is a number. I'll never forget when I first started teaching. When you go in, I was taught, and this is how I became a data specialist. When you walk into a classroom and you have your students, you should see numbers, their scores radiating above their heads. So when you have that piece, you shift away from what is the strengths-based approach, meaning what is this kid really good at, right?
mhm, mhm.
And then how do we not discard the kids who are not going to get those meets and master scores and make me look like a good teacher?
So, so I just want to make sure we're clear. Is you're saying the biggest challenge right now is people see the testing, right? And the tests, kids are identified by numbers on a test. And so that is a big fear on why them thinking about integration of AI and that stuff could be a challenge. Is that what I hear you saying? Did I say
For
that right?
sure.
Okay.
What we the term is data-driven instruction.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna have well, in our practice, how I was trained, you have an end goal. Okay, I need 65 out of 90 students to be at this particular benchmark so that my scores can look good, right? As a teacher. Specifically in certain districts in Texas, they're moving into pay by performance, right? So while
Mm-hmm.
we're thinking we're incentivizing teachers to um, increase their instructional capacity and move student achievement along, I can see how that could be a hindrance, because the test is not preparing, it's testing aptitude, skills, knowledge. But when we think about real world readiness and how, like I said, we're not going to be able to avoid AI. You have to
Yeah,
pick your
but
battle.
so let me push a little bit, right? So
Yeah,
I've been in education for a long time, like you have, right? And we use these words, right? But I don't think people even understand what the words. So like I always hear them say real world this and all that. I have yet to hear people like actually define what the heck that means.
good question.
So when
Okay.
you say to me real world, here's what I'm saying. When I come out, I should have a skill to do a job. That's how I define real world. What I've learned in education is real world. They use, college career readiness, real world experiences but ain't none of the stuff that they teaching ain't got nothing to do with teaching a real world experience, right? It doesn't lead to a certification, doesn't lead to a job. It doesn't lead to, you understand what I'm saying? And, and the reason I bring this up is because like what I'm learning more and more as I engage with different places is that there's all these different interpretations, but the bigger part is there's a whole set of soft skills that intertwine with these hard skills that I get fearful of. If we don't start thinking about how to use AI that way, you're just going to have another set of big words they're going to use. I'm sure there's some new word they're going to come out with, right? that
AI
everybody's going to
can't
repeat.
teach
So,
soft skills. I'm so sorry.
right.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news. If AI is teaching soft skills, we're going to have a huge, huge mental health crisis. We're going to have a huge social interpersonal effectiveness
So,
crisis.
so maybe there's some type of a solution we should be thinking about in how we design certain things. If it's supposed to help us get information as quickly as possible, to help us think about what are ways to translate that to kids or whoever, right? Or even to
Yes.
adults, right? Or communities or parents or whatever. So I think like there's just so many opportunities that we don't see in this space, but I also see that there's a cultural clash that happens in the system and with the community in terms of what this should look like. And the reason I was bringing up the real world thing is because, like, it's just another set of those worlds, like, equal access or real, these type of things. I was just thinking about that in the context of how now AI is, looks like it's changing the world, right? Changing how we should be doing things and analyzing things. And so
It's
I
changing the skills we're going to need.
that's correct. That's correct. That's
Critical
correct.
thinking, right? So one of the courses that I loved about my district is they started Art of Thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So you're teaching kids how to think critically in a different multitude of ways. So subjective, objective, primary versus secondary source evaluation. AI can be used to advance that work, but we also, as educators and parents, let's not even, because parenting is a huge component. We don't want AI raising kids because they will Google, just like, hey, AI, teach me how to, and it's giving misinformation. So running that back, we need to teach kids critically for themselves in everyday life before we can get them to be productive and use AI to leverage to their advantage.
But Alexis, don't you think that's already too late? Like I would argue with you and say kids are already learning through like social media platforms or through these TikTok, Instagram, whatever these. I think that's how I think adults are learning that way.
You know,
I would argue now that people are probably learning more through that than they are through like regular schooling.
but see though, it's a difference between, yes, I can learn a TikTok dance 30 moves, but then I sit down to read a book and I'm at a fourth grade level. And I'm not talking about kids, I'm talking about adults, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, audio, visual, there are so many different types of learning. And so they're learning, we're picking up, but it's not authentic learning. It's not processing, it's not comprehension. It's I'm watching and I'm doing, right?
Mm.
It's surface based. It's not really internalizing and using comprehension, using recall, using application, using inferencing.
Do you think
It's given to
technology?
us.
Do you think technology is helping people's comprehension get better or helping their comprehension get worse?
Get worse because you're not critically thinking. They're good. I'm going to watch this video and it's going to tell me about Malcolm Jamal Warner dying. And I'm not going to even question, what if he didn't drown? I'm a conspiracy theorist at times, so forgive me now. I don't want to put that out. But did he really drown? Or could it be kids aren't thinking like that? And some adults aren't either. Um, you're not questioning the source. We're just
Yeah,
taking it for face value. Oh, it's viral. Oh, it has 100 comments. We're
yeah,
not thinking about the people making the comments. And so
yeah,
that is where we're losing critical thinking and comprehension, right?
yeah.
And that's scary.
And I know Malcolm Jamal Warner just passed away. Just but shout out to his family. Keep them in prayer. Because I can remember I grew up as a Cosby kid during that time,
For sure.
but people don't know how much impact television had, especially being growing up and watching educated kids and stuff. So, that was I just thought about that while you were talking about that. Yeah. So what I hear you saying is there's uh, a shocking truth in terms of things that we got to consider as we're pushing AI into schools, right? Or it's already here, right? And you think that there needs to be a different set of skills that they need to learn in this process. Is that right?
It has to be layered. Yes.
Okay. And so if you had to describe what would be the three layered things to do for that, what would they be?
I would say independent thinking,
Mm-hmm.
analysis,
Mm-hmm.
comprehension, and communication. So how do you articulate your ideas that you've generated? That's going to be
So
cool.
you believe that if anybody using the tool, they need to have at least those 4 areas you just described, right?
For sure.
All right. And what would that look like if I'm an average Joe, right, or male or female right now listening to this, and I'm trying to get a better understanding? What would you say I should be thinking about as I'm thinking about those 4 categories you just mentioned?
So one of the ways that I kind of work with when I'm facilitating, when I'm teaching lessons, how I could leverage AI is when we talk about real world experiences. So I'm going to think up a problem or a story. I
Mm-hmm.
can prompt that in, AI can spit out the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have kids actually go through and think through that scenario or situation. So it's almost like hands on, it's a blended learning approach, and which they have to not necessarily read, but they're presented with a problem. So would you choose to be rich and blind, or would you choose to be able to see but not speak? And how would you overcome barriers to life? So say I could not see, but I could speak. How would I be able to make it through? And let's see, I'm just freestyling off the top of my head. How would I be able to know and trust my environment? How would I know I was at home?
Mm-hmm.
And then having kids think through that and have authentic conversation about it with their peers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with AI, that's why I'm talking about analysis and communication.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very isolating to only interact with a computer. But if you're using that to lead to authentic discussion with peers, kids learn from each other more than they learn from a teacher. They learn from a computer, first and foremost. And so just making sure you're incorporating those 4 components,
Mm-hmm.
independent thinking, analysis, communication, and articulation of ideas, so that they can then have those conversations with a pointed topic and implement creativity, because our kids are creative. Like I said, they can learn a TikTok dance in 10 minutes, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they like that. They're
Mm-hmm.
engaged, they enjoy that. So I
What do you
think that
think?
if we can get on that, we'd be moving in the right direction.
What I know earlier in the conversation you mentioned ethical spaces. What are some of the ethical things we should be thinking about when it comes to this? When it comes to working with AI in schools?
Noticing original works from copywritten works.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't, and let me not say a lot of people, I'll speak for myself. In our day, we couldn't copy from the textbook. You would know it was copied from the textbook. So just imagine you have AI as a encyclopedia textbook and all of the things times 10.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to type in, hey, write me a paper on health. I don't have the capacity as a student, and sometimes as an older adult student, to reread and question my sources. So when we get into ethics, I'm going to post this great paper and it wins an award, and then I'm getting sued, right? Because I didn't cite my source. I didn't realize, oh, this is not my words. I just pulled this straight from an article. I've seen it
Mm-hmm.
happen, right? Or AI lies. I'm thinking I'm giving you raw stats, raw data, and it's skewed. Hey, I went and fact checked that, and it actually says, so imagine you're teaching a class and you got your data down. I've been up there teaching down, and this and that and this and that, and 98% of this is not that. And the student says, ma'am, according to this, it's 72%. And then you go back and look, you scrambling because you didn't do your homework, right? You let AI do the heavy lifting. You still got to do our heavy lifting.
But would you say now Alexis is like, okay, so would you say now that maybe we should be teaching kids something differently instead of writing these 10, 15-page papers? Maybe we say, hey, get them to ask for something more specific. I mean, because some
Yeah.
of those things that we did was just a matter of, I would call it exercise to help your mind get better at learning on how to do something else, right?
Yes.
Because I mean, I can remember writing thousands of pages of papers, right? Um, Did that help me to go write a dissertation when I had a job? No. you know, but it helped me learn how to critically think or how to prioritize. So maybe the thing is when we're thinking about these AI tools is we use the tool in a different way to help us get different set of skills. The question I keep asking is like, what I find funny right around this whole education and culture space is the hard shift people make to that change. So you have you always see in schools a group of folks holding on to, what they've always done, right? And then you see a younger group that comes in, or a group that's enticed around wanting to learn different stuff, wanting to do this whole different innovation thing. And then you see the cultures and the skills, the culture starts clashing, right, in that school, right, or in a district, for example. So I just think it's really interesting about that. From your experience, when you watch some of this, would you say I've accurately mentioned the dynamic that you see in those in your experience with the schools, or you say it's even more different than that?
I'd say you are spot on, as an administrator coaching teachers and being younger and not single, but a Black young woman or young lady compared to teachers that's been in the game 30 years.
Mhm.
And you can see the difference in classrooms. For me, a loud classroom is an engaging classroom. But then I
Mhm.
have teachers that I would have to coach, like I said, 30 years in the
Mhm.
game. You
They just
better
want
not
quiet.
move. You better not come.
Don't
Okay.
breathe.
Don't even breathe, because and they just talking, 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 and the kids just
Right.
and those kids get in more trouble than the kids in the messy classroom, because they can find a way. That's what people say. Kids can do whatever and
They
more.
want. That's right. Well, it's something I was just thinking about this, Alex. Why that comment you made? Why I find it interesting is when you looked at schools that were lower performance schools or schools that had a lot of discipline issues, you walk in and you'd watch administrators, people wanting to create this. I call it this military style, right? The classrooms need to look this particular way. They're not collaborating. It's just this whole different. And what they paid more attention to is, are they quiet? Are they respectful? Da da da. I go to the whole other part of the world where I'm watching schools that are performing at a tremendously higher level and all that. I watch like kids don't ever have to ask if they got to go to the bathroom. Kids got, they could be in the middle of the hallway collaborating, having discussions, blah, blah, blah. Like you watch, it's a totally set up where you see them creating a group of thinkers and folks who are problem solvers. And on the other end, you look like they're working and getting people to be working more to be like more like an assembly line. I mean, I hate to use that terminology, but you see that dynamic all the time. Would
Mhm.
I would I and then I start thinking about my own experience, like, yo, how did I make it? Yo, like, because I was in those environments, but I still was able to. And then I started meeting other kids, right, that were like me, like they made it, like yourself. Yeah, like we get through this stuff. So I'm trying to think like, what are the things that we could say in terms of AI, right? Because it's changing the dynamic of the world that we can force there not to be these two different approaches around how kids should be learning. Because I'm fearful of, if you're in a much more high performing school, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I'm going to explore AI. I'm going to explore everything on technology. I'm going to do all these things. If I'm in a much more struggling school, I'm going to do less of that, right? Because I'm usually working with folks who are keeping a whole different view on what they think school is, right? And I'm not going to be able to become more self sufficient so I can have the necessary skills that I need to have a job, right? So, I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, in my experience, the biggest discipline problems come when kids
Mm-hmm.
are bored.
Mm,
We know technology doesn't bore students. We know that interacting and talking to they come to school to interact. If we think about the kids, I think about pandemic learning, post pandemic, right?
uh-huh.
We had a lot of discipline problems because, especially from our little ones, because they hadn't been around kids.
Mm,
Socialization sometimes trumps academics.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when we have AI, they like that, and not only do they like it, students need that, adults need that,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. And so when we think about shifting culture and climate, how do we use AI to increase student engagement? We can bring back pen pals, write a letter and translate it into Spanish. It's so many ideas. But like you said, you have your old school traditional versus your new school creatives. And typically they clash because nobody wants to get out of that comfort, that sweet spot. And
Mhm.
what allows us to get away with it, all technology aside, is hey, I got the test score. So something is working. I'm not going to switch it up because if it's not broke, don't fix it. But what we're doing when we do that is we're living in a broken world and we're going to have to get our kids ready to fix it. Sitting down like we did and, writing sentences and answering questions in a textbook, that's not going to
Yeah, that's not
fix
gonna
it.
cut it.
That's
Yeah.
not going to allow students, adults, even our whole community. We have to get with it. I can speak a little bit on housing. Black people, over the last 10 years, we were owning homes at 44.1. In 10 years, we're now at 44.7, har.com. I'll cite my reference. Hispanics have jumped almost 10%.
Mhm.
Why? Because educational attainment and better jobs. Now, when I say better jobs, we're not talking lawyer, doctor. We're talking about plant, just old school manufacturing. Our
Mhm.
students struggle because the technology, one, two, our work ethic, right?
Mm, mm.
So when we talk about AI work ethic, so many things that can be mitigated in schools if we start exposure.
So you think that I was just thinking about because I'm going to pivot us a little bit to because I want to get to this unlimited solution approach. You think that while we're learning all this new technology, trying to adapt and adjust, do you think we're hurting ourselves simultaneously in that process? Would you say that's a true statement?
Yep.
In
Um,
what way would you say that?
we are hurting ourselves because I'm going to speak for me. I've spent a lot of time writing a lot of papers, right?
Hmm.
Oh, so now I can just type this in. I can write a paper in 10 minutes and I find myself forgetting how to structure a paragraph, how to add depth and voice. All I'm doing is going in and editing,
Hmm.
right? And so when we think about that problem and that disconnect, we're not exercising the right muscles. One, two, we glued. I am glued to all screens. You can have a phone, an iPad, and a laptop going at one time. And that stimulation, that overstimulation, it makes it hard for us to relax and enjoy simple things. We're
Well,
not exercising.
I find people don't relax at all. Like, so I found that it's hard for people to just relax in general without technology, right? I mean, if I tell you the amount of family members that I got that gotta watch TikTok before they go to bed, you wouldn't believe me.
Oh,
Right? Or Facebook
yep,
or Instagram or whatever technology. Like it's now like they would rather do that than have a conversation or watch TV. I mean, it has been that much of a takeover of
yes,
of technology. And what's interesting is they get constant information, right? Your knowledge for how much information you get over and over is like, it's maybe like 20 seconds or less, right? So it's just interesting to me now, like how these dynamics play in our everyday culture in society, and where we are. And I think it doesn't matter where you are in the world, this is going on, no matter what color you are, what socioeconomics. I mean, I just think it cuts through that way. That's why really got caught up in like, what does this mean for education? What does this mean for what goes on in schools? What does it mean for different type of leaders, et cetera? Let me, as we finish up, there's I want to give you an opportunity to give us three types of solutions. We call this our unlimited, right? So we always talk about unlearn unlimited. So what would what would be like if you do these three things? Sky's the limit, right? When it comes to what goes on in schools around this stuff of AI and connection of students.
I think one, stepping into a child's world, students' worlds. So I like to engage with students. Hey, beyond, of course, they're gonna be messy. They're gonna tell you all the gossip, all the,
Right,
but what's the new lingo, right?
right.
What's the new Jordans? What's the new
Can't you
hair?
find out? You can find out in AI, can't you?
Oh, no, you can't. See, there you go. You got to talk. So for adults, that authoritative, that old school, I'm the parent, I'm the teacher, you the child. We have to kind of even that out. Second, we're gonna have to go beyond, or we're gonna have to shift our approach to standardized testing. I get it, funding, all of those things, but testing results don't really reflect a student and the wealth and the health, the performance, because it's beyond academics. I can have a gifted kid that's in trouble every day. So we have to move beyond testing results and looking at kids as numbers to learning them. What intrinsically motivates you? What are your strengths that may not be related to academics? And how can I help you set up for success based on your strengths? Not me trying to fit you into a mold that you're never going to fit into because it's not meant for you. Third, for me on the adult side and the children's side, is we're going to have to really, really get ready for how we're going to address mental health crisis. Because as we get more engaged with AI, and we become to rely more on interacting with the computer, that sense of reality can be warped, right? Because I have my singular lens, which AI tailors it to. It allows me to live disconnected from others' perspectives, So I think that those three things in the educational space, and even in the community space, if we just consider those things as we're moving into what we're going to do in our plans, I think that would at least set us up to be more prepared, because it's like I said, you can't avoid it. It's here, and it's going to only get more advanced.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Alexis, that is our time. Listen, I appreciate you coming on the show and talking to us about this. I know we talked about a few different things, and I know we could talk about this for days and hours. but we always want to hear a different perspective lens. I know you. When we did a little bit of background, I know you talked about you had a single parent, but y'all have done tremendously well. Also an educator, from my understanding, which we probably one day would love to have both y'all on the show to hear more about that. But just this dynamic of like what goes on in schools, how it goes about it, what they should not be fearful of, not be fearful of, those type of things. I think what we always are trying to do is to push the limits on the truth, and more importantly, push the limits on seeing like what people can't see, right? Because these are the things that are really disturbing schools every single day, right? Like I always said, schools. You ever seen that movie? There's a movie. It's called Now You See Me. They show you this, but this is what's really going on. Right? I mean, every dynamic plays like that, whether it's in school, life, society, and we're trying to get folks to say, hey, everybody. This is a struggle no matter where you are in the country, no matter what color you are, no matter what your socioeconomics. Everybody's trying to figure out how to adjust and get around. And I think like that's the only way we can really make strong shifts in this. And so just wanted to say thank you for coming on. We're super excited that you came, and we're going to actually come back soon. So be clear, keep your calendar open. At least give me a little bit of minutes on how your calendar's always packed. But for the audience, if you like the show today, please make sure that you share, like, subscribe to our show. Also, any contributions, also comments and questions. We try to make sure that even when you have questions and things like that, you can send it to us. Alexis will be engaged in that process on there. So even if you're on YouTube or any of those, make some comments. We try to make sure that we get out. And if there's anything specific you want to ask Alexis, or you wanted to come out and see you guys in your schools or anything like that, please let us know. You can send us a comment or anything like that, and we can get out that information out to her so she can come out and connect with you. I know she works with a lot of schools across the country and also in the great state of Texas, to do stuff. So we're really excited about that. So once again, make sure you please share, like, and subscribe. Great show. And thank you again, Alexis.
Thank you, Sito.
Unlearned Unlimited. Unlearned Unlimited. Yeah.